For centuries, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood as an enigma, a monument so vast and so precise that its construction seems to defy explanation. The mystery has fueled countless theories, from lost technologies to extraterrestrial intervention. But the truth, as revealed by decades of archaeological research, is a story not of magic, but of extraordinary human ingenuity, organization, and sheer perseverance. The solution to this ancient puzzle lies not in the fantastical, but in the practical, grounded details of a civilization at the peak of its power. The most persistent myth is that the pyramids were built by slaves, toiling under the lash. Archaeological evidence paints a very different picture. The builders were skilled Egyptian workers, organized into professional crews. They lived in a purpose-built city near the construction site, a sprawling settlement complete with housing, storage facilities for provisions, and medical clinics. Excavations of their tombs reveal they were buried with honor near the pharaohs they served, a privilege never afforded to slaves. These were respected specialists, masons, engineers, toolmakers, and surveyors, who were paid for their labor in the form of rations, including bread, fish, and beer. This was a national project, drawing rotating teams of laborers from across the kingdom who took immense pride in building a monument for their king and their gods. Their tools were not from a lost, advanced civilization. They were the simple, effective instruments of the Bronze Age, wielded with incredible skill. For the millions of limestone blocks that form the pyramid's core, quarried right on the Giza Plateau, copper chisels and saws were perfectly adequate. While copper is a relatively soft metal, it is effective for cutting and shaping limestone. The real challenge was the much harder granite, brought from Aswan over 500 miles to the south, used for the king's chamber and other structural elements. To work this resilient stone, the Egyptians employed a more laborious method. They used hard dolerite pounders to relentlessly bash the granite into a rough shape. For finer cutting and finishing, they likely used copper saws, but not on their own. The key was an abrasive slurry, a mixture of sand and water, fed continuously into the cut. The saw's movement would drag the sharp quartz crystals of the sand back and forth, slowly grinding their way through the stone. It was a slow, grueling process, but with enough time and manpower, it was entirely achievable. This, combined with wooden levers for positioning and thick ropes for pulling, formed their simple yet powerful toolkit. The logistics of moving millions of tons of stone were a marvel of project management. The bulk of the limestone was conveniently quarried right next to the pyramid, minimizing overland travel. For the granite from Aswan and the fine white Tura limestone for the outer casing, the Egyptians harnessed the power of the Nile. They timed these long-distance shipments to coincide with the river's annual inundation, when floodwaters rose and extended closer to the Giza Plateau. Barges could then deliver their massive cargo to a specially constructed harbor and system of canals, bringing the stones almost to the foot of the construction site. Once on land, the blocks, some weighing several tons, were loaded onto large wooden sledges. To move them across the sand, the Egyptians employed a brilliantly simple trick, one depicted in their own tomb paintings. By pouring a small amount of water onto the sand directly in front of the sledge's runners, they dramatically reduced friction, allowing a smaller team of workers to haul the immense weight with surprising efficiency. This wasn't a guess. It's a principle of physics that has been successfully tested and proven in modern experiments. Getting the stones up the rising structure is another area often clouded by myth. The idea of a single gigantic ramp extending from the ground to the pyramid's peak is impractical. It would have required more material and effort than the pyramid itself. Instead, archaeologists believe the Egyptians used a combination of ramp systems that evolved as the pyramid grew. A wide, straight ramp was likely used for the lower, broader levels. As the structure rose and steepened, they probably switched to a more efficient system, such as a series of zigzagging ramps that hugged the pyramid's sides, or even an internal ramp that spiraled upwards within the core of the structure itself. Blocks were then levered into their final position course by course, in a process of constant adjustment and iteration. Perhaps the most astonishing achievement is the pyramid's precision. The base is almost perfectly level, varying by less than an inch, and its four sides are aligned almost exactly to the cardinal directions. This was accomplished with brilliant, low-tech methods. To level the vast foundation, they likely cut a grid of trenches into the bedrock, filled them with water, and marked the resulting water level. Everything above that mark was then chipped away, creating a flawless horizontal plane. For alignment, they looked to the heavens. By tracking the rising and setting of a star, they could find true north. Another method, the solar noon shadow, involved tracking the shortest shadow cast by a vertical pole, or gnomon, to determine the north-south line. Using simple sighting rods and plumb lines, they could then extend these lines to create a near-perfect square base. The final step was to encase the entire structure in highly polished white Tura limestone, which would have made the pyramid gleam like a jewel in the desert sun. This outer layer was so precisely fitted that a knife blade could not be inserted between the stones. The construction of the Great Pyramid was not the work of aliens or a lost civilization. It was the result of meticulous planning, sophisticated project management, and the collective effort of tens of thousands of skilled and dedicated human beings. It stands today as the ultimate testament to what people can achieve when they unite their labor, intellect, and will toward a single monumental goal.
If this made you think, there's more waiting for you. Subscribe and drift into deeper thoughts.